The Bible tells us very clearly that in the last days, two nations in the Eastern world are going to vie for world power and supremacy. Well, how do we know this? Well, we know this from the book of Daniel, recorded about 2,600 years ago by the ancient Hebrew prophet Daniel, who spoke of two powerful nations that would arise in the last days, and he called them the nations of the north and the nations of the south. Well, how do we know that they're in the Eastern world? Well, keep in mind that the Bible always places Israel at the center of its geographical map. So a nation called the nation of the north would be directly north of Israel, and a nation called the nation of the south would be directly south of Israel. But in this case, Daniel defines the southern nation as a border nation of the northern nation. And we know that the most powerful nation right now north of Israel is a nation called Russia. And directly south of Russia is China, that is separated by Mongolia. It borders Russia on two different points, with Mongolia in the middle. Not surprisingly, these two nations are rising rapidly militarily and economically and politically in the world, as the United States and the nations of Western Europe are in a steep decline economically, politically, and militarily. So it's important to keep your eyes on both Russia and China, and also we could add a third nation, India, that are rising rapidly. And there are also three nations that are heavily dependent upon fossil fuel and that have rejected the green energy agenda of the Western world. Now, you know, the Western world is trying to get away from fossil energy. They've signed on to this pipe dream of solar and wind energy that they believe is going to be able to power up the world in the 21st century and beyond. Well, I hate to say it, but the green energy agenda is going to ultimately fail to deliver on its promises. And when it does, the Eastern world, and specifically Russia, China, and India, are going to control much of the fossil energy supply of the world, which is going to force the West to do their bidding politically, economically, and militarily. And that's one of the reasons why the Eastern world is going to rise rapidly, because fossil energy, coal, natural gas, which is not a fossil fuel, but it's a very important fuel that fuels much of the industry in the world, and coal, which is a fossil fuel, are going to become the economic chips that are going to force the West into submission, I believe, in the future, because of this green energy agenda, which is ultimately, again, going to fail to deliver on its promises. So I want you to keep your eyes on Russia, China, India, and the nations of the East. They are rising rapidly in the world, as the United States is in steep decline. And it's important to understand this. The Bible's been right about everything else. The appearance of Jesus Christ as a Messiah, the rise and fall of Israel and subsequent restoration of Israel. So it's going to be right about this too. The book of Daniel is a very important prophetic book that's in the Old Testament, and it talks about this. And one other thing that we should mention about the book of Daniel, chapter 11, it talks about the rise of the Antichrist coming from the northern nation, which I believe is Russia. That the Antichrist is ultimately going to come from this northern nation that we know as Russia. And also that's backed up by prophecy in the book of Ezekiel, which was written about the 6th century BC. He talks about the rise of Gog and Magog in the last days. And Gog, of course, is nothing more than an ancient moniker for another name for the tribe of Rosh, which is where the modern Russians get their name from. So keep your eyes on Russia, keep your eyes on China. They are going to continue to rise as the United States and the nations of Western Europe continue to fall as we wind down to the end and the return of Jesus Christ as Lord. Thank you, and God bless.